You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I am your host, Steph, and joining me today to talk about all things 49ers cap is the cap guru himself, Jason Hurley. How's it going today, Jason?
Good, I'm doing good. How about you, Steph?
Not too bad, not too bad. Before we begin, I did want to just mention this last piece of news that we got a couple minutes ago before we started. The 49ers had Alabama tight end. Oh my God, I didn't even put his name in this post. I'm just noticing that on my tweet. Sorry. Cameron Latu. They had him in for a top 30 visit. So added that to my tracker. And as you guys know, these top 30 visits are very important in gauging who the 49ers may eventually end up drafting. But today we're going to be talking about the 49ers cap situation. And I think the recent video that came out with Trey Lance today, I don't know if you saw it, Jason. I assume you did. That's like the latest talk, and we'll definitely start off talking about that and about Trey Lance in general because, you know, I think there's been a lot of talk about him this offseason and, you know, the 49ers are going to trade him and whatnot. So here's the throw. A lot of people talking about it, that it's man, hold on. Let me fix my let me fix this. That it's like a there we go. Yeah, so a lot of people talking about this throw, and first, I know a lot of people ask you cap questions, Jason, but like, did you see this? What do you think about the throw and just the outlook of Trey Lance in general?
I think he looks much better than he did last year. I think it looks better.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people were saying, that this kind of looks like a tighter. First of all, I mean, the spiral, you can see the throw is definitely tighter. It's just one throw, right? So this is all we have to analyze for the rest of this offseason until we get another clip. But pretty much, I mean, it looks like he's maybe worked on his throwing motion a little bit, and that's what has allowed for a tighter throw. But anyway, that was the excitement of Twitter today, and that's great. But basically, we're here today to talk about the salary cap situation, and you know, Trey Lance, I think, kind of fits into all that because people talking about the 49ers trading Lance, and I've looked at his contract, and personally, looking at it, I don't think it makes sense to trade him because they would have a dead cap hit. I think of like $11 million if they did it before June 1st. So what do you think about that? Do you feel like this is a scenario that could take place, that Lance is traded, you know, during the draft this offseason?
I don't see any way they trade Trey Lance, especially during the draft, because as the whole contract pre-June 1, if they trade him, they're going to lose about $1.55 million in cap room. And that's not a significant number for the 49ers. They have about $3 million in cap space. So it's like half of what they have right now.
Right. They're pinching pennies. And so like when you're pinching pennies, every million counts. And so that's why I can't imagine the 49ers like actually saying, okay, let's just spend this money just to get him off the roster. Right. Not just from the money standpoint, but also the 49ers had a lot of issues keeping their quarterbacks healthy last season, right? Brock Purdy's coming off, you know, an injury as well. So I think it makes sense to keep Trey Lance at least another year, and then maybe next year you can see what you can do then. But even then, I feel like the 49ers would be in a tough spot just considering that dead cap hit, because next year it would be the same, right?
Next year, if they were to just release him, which ain't gonna happen, it'd be like $10 million in dead cap. But if they were to trade him, they'd save, I think, $5 million around that area. But again, I mean, I guess everything we have to see how he looks this year. We have to see how he does. Just it all depends on 2023.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's definitely a fluid situation, as you know, I've been saying this entire off season. But basically, to sum up what we said, it seems unlikely for this off season. I think that's just what we know in the very near future. All right.
I don't see it happening.
So, and you mentioned the 49ers current cap space is around 3 million, right?
Yeah.
And that's counting like the most recent signings that they did, Feliciano, all those guys.
That counts everybody so far.
Okay, great. So, and then for the draft, I guess that's the other question too. I think I've seen people say that it would only cost about 1 million or something like that to get the draft class.
Oh yeah, the good part about the draft, with the fact that they have 11 picks. Obviously, we know that, and the majority of them are day 3 picks.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have 3 third rounders and then the rest are on day 3. So only the third round picks would count against the cap in the off season. So while it would cost around 3.2 million to sign them, you take away 3 players making 870,000. So it brings it down to under $1 million to sign the draft class.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know how that like broke down. I was like, that seems pretty low, but okay, like that sounds.
Yeah.
And of course, that's also assuming that they draft 11 players, right? With the 11 picks that they have.
Yeah,
so it may be even less than that.
Yeah.
If they don't use all their picks.
Yeah, because I don't see them. I don't see 11 spots open on the roster.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. So 3 million, or around 3 million, not a lot to work with. And do you feel like the way that the 49ers have structured their deals, like their extensions, you think about Kittle, you think about Deebo Samuel, all of them really, they're very backloaded, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the money is in those later years. Do you feel like we're getting to a point where that's starting to catch up to them, or it's going to catch up to them very soon here?
I found this on the web.
Oh, my watch is stalking me again, so that's cool. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I have that happen all the time with Siri. Yeah, no. I don't think there is much of a problem, really. I think people are overblowing it. They're kind of like making it too big of a thing, too big of a deal that it just isn't. I mean, as long as they don't restructure the same contract year after year, you've got the cap flexibility. Like they restructured Fred Warner and Travarius Ward this year.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm okay with. Next year, you don't do that. If you do anything next year, you extend Travarius Ward because he's in the last year of his contract next year. So while it may look like, the 49ers have some cap issues next year, they really don't, because they have the ability to go and restructure a couple contracts, get the money needed, and be able to bring in some free agents again. I don't foresee any real issue, only if they don't restructure again more and they keep doing the same guys over and over again.
Yeah, and I felt like they restructured like last year. I felt like they restructured more contracts than they did this year. So I don't know if that was like, they made it a point to not want to restructure too many
Mm-hmm.
contracts this offseason, maybe for that
Yeah.
reason. Because I
Yeah.
definitely noticed that.
Yeah, they want to keep their cap flexibility and the cap health to be as good as possible.
Yeah. So looking at specific position groups,
Yep.
I'm thinking a lot lately about the wide receiver position because Deebo Samuel, he has his contract, his cap number goes up a whole lot. I think starting next year, right?
Yep.
It's next year, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So starting next year, and that's around the time that Brandon Ayuk is going to be looking for an extension as well. So
Mm-hmm.
do you see a scenario where the 49ers would potentially be able to have both of those guys and be able to pay both of those guys on an extension without making a lot of other changes elsewhere?
Oh yeah, I foresee both of them being here next year, and on a contract extension for Brandon Ayuk. I do.
Wow. Okay. That's
Yeah.
great to hear because like I've kind of been like, there's no way they can do it. Like the way that they're because this year, we're talking about the fact that they're
Mm-hmm.
pinching pennies, and so like I feel like next year it'll be about the same or maybe even worse. Is it just because like some contracts going to be coming off the books like for free agents that they have next going into next year? Like what makes you so positive that they'll be able to fit both in the cap?
I really believe that next year they will. And going back to the restructuring part of it, I really believe they'll restructure Devo's contract because the way it's set up is it's got like a $20.9 million base salary next year, and I don't think they ever were gonna pay him that kind of money like in that year because the way the contract is set up, it's like 20.9 next year, and the year after that it goes down to like 15 million. So it's like they can save over 15 million by restructuring next year, which will help keep some of the players that they want to keep next year. I mean, it's so early to say who will be a guy that
Yeah,
they'll want to keep,
for sure.
Yeah. But when you look at it, and when I look at it, I say to myself, okay, they can restructure Debo's contract. They could alter not Eric Armstead. I'm sorry. George Kittle could be another guy that they could restructure, or they could look to extend him. They could look to extend Eric Armstead. They could look to extend Ward, Dre Greenlaw. When you look at that, that's saving a lot of money. That's like 30 million for those three players: Ward, Greenlaw, and Armstead. If they were to extend those three before free agency next year, when March comes around again, they'll save like $30 million in cap room.
Is
And
there
then
any Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, and then on top of the Devo restructure, which would be like 15.6 million.
Is there any like risk or I guess like danger to doing a restructures? You said more so if they do too many restructures on the same
Yeah.
contract, but if it just in general, like are restructures kind of it's to me the way I see it's like a kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
So is there a risk to doing that too much with all these different contracts? Like,
Oh yeah. There's a risk to doing it too much. We've seen what happened to the New Orleans Saints.
yeah,
Yeah, they were 100 million last year over, and then they were 60 million over this year. Tampa Bay, the Rams. Yeah, so yeah, you don't want to restructure contracts over and over and over, and you don't. it's becoming a norm in the NFL for teams to restructure contracts. I mean, it used to be where the contract was the contract, and then you'd restructure a contract, and then it got back to being a contract is, hey, if you want to stay, you got to take a pay cut, not a restructure. There's a big difference between a pay cut and a restructure.
Right.
So now it seems like every team is just restructuring contracts left and right just to get room. And to me, I'm okay with restructuring a max of 2 contracts a year. Not every year, but for 1 year. For this year, I'm okay with the 2. Next year, I'd be okay with 2 or 3. With the following year, I would say you don't, because beyond 2024, their salary cap is very healthy. I mean, they have like a projected $100 million in cap room in 2025. 2026, they only have 5 players under contract.
That's
So
crazy.
and the cap by 2026 is projected to be over 300 million.
Right.
That's
Do you
another
think
reason.
some of the
Yeah,
I think that's why some of the teams are like, okay, let me just restructure, let me kick the can down the road, because we know the cap will be higher then. Is that kind of like the strategy for some of these teams?
Yeah, that is a big strategy for some of the teams. Whether or not they're going to admit it or not, we don't know. But yeah, the fact that the salary cap is going to go way up, and I mean way up, like next year it's going to be around 260 million. The year after that, over 280, and then the year after that, in 2026, 300 million. We're looking at least $20 million cap increases every year. And that's all due in part to the new TV deals. The NFL ticket being with YouTube now, Fox, CBS, ESPN, Amazon Prime, Thursday Night Football, all that.
Right.
That revenue is going to go into the cap, and it's really going to help raise the cap, and it's going to help teams and players. It's going to help teams get the players they want. Players are going to get the money they want. So everything's going to be in kind of like.
Now, speaking of players that the team would want, Nick Bosa, you want that guy on your team for as long as he can stand on 2 legs. The question is, there's a lot of speculation, I guess, of like, oh, Nick Bosa, he's gonna want a fully guaranteed contract. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if the 49ers would even let that happen. The 49ers are pretty how should I say, like, I don't know. I don't think they would do that.
No, they're pretty much set in their way. They have a certain way of doing contracts, and they're not going to do a fully guaranteed contract.
Right.
I think fully guaranteed contracts will come at some point, but for the time being, I think the Deshaun Watson deal was an anomaly. It really wasn't what.
And
Even though,
I
and
think
Lamar
so
Jackson
too.
Lamar wants, I guess, at least 3 of the years fully guaranteed, and who knows what it is, but I just can't see a team dishing out that kind of money. Now, yes, QB is one of the most, if not the most important positions in football. And then just as important as a quarterback has been an elite edge rusher.
Yeah.
But I just can't see the 49ers or really any team paying an edge rusher fully guaranteed.
Yeah, I don't either. And, I think it's more likely he probably becomes the highest paid defensive player, which I think that, he's earned that. Kind of similar to the contract that they gave Trent Williams in a sense. So looking ahead at what that could potentially look like, and thinking about what the 49ers cap situation will be, next season, do you still feel like the 49ers cap will be healthy and their situation will be pretty healthy.
Yeah,
fitting Bosa in.
Yeah, what they're going to do with Nick Bosa is what they've been doing with pretty much George Kittle, Fred Warner, and then Deebo Samuel. They're going to they're going to sign him to a new deal. It's going to be a low first and second year cap number, and then it'll go up in year 3.
Okay.
And you are kind of playing with fire when you keep doing that over and over. But if the cap is going to go up, 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 and up, then you do it because you've got to just you have to get the player under contract, and you got to have the money in those years to sign other players.
Okay. Yeah, so then I feel pretty good about it because like I was starting to wonder. Everyone's talking about the 49ers, their Super Bowl window. It's this year. Like this should be their all-in year. Looking at their cap situation, do you agree? Because I mean, you mentioned the fact that you feel like their cap health will be good, but that cap health being good doesn't always equate to, they'll be competing for a Super Bowl. So how do you see that kind of playing out? Do you feel like money-wise, this is the year to go all in?
I think this year is the year to go all in. If they have a trade in season that they can make to bring in, like, say, a right tackle, they should definitely do it. I think this year is the year. I think they showed it when they brought in Javon Hargrave. That was the big signing that I did not see coming. I don't think any 49er fan saw that coming.
Nope. I was looking at like budget defensive tackles and like, just because I knew that's how the 49ers roll usually.
I was looking at the Matt Ioannidis, who's I think still unsigned.
Yes,
so it's
he is.
I was looking at. I was thinking like $13 million a year would be where they would go. I didn't think they would go all the way to $21 million a year.
Right. So does that tell you that they are going all in, like the?
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure that Hargrave even said he was offered more money by the Browns, I think, and so but he still decided to sign with San Francisco. I mean, a good sign for them. But what do you think the makeup of this team, like how different is this going to look when they're not all in? Let's just say like starting next year, they do have a pretty good situation with their quarterbacks from a money standpoint, right? Because they have Trey Lance, they have Brock Purdy, both on rookie contracts. I think that gives them the flexibility to make moves like the Hargrave signing, right? But looking at next year, looking at, like let's say when Trent Williams retires, I kind of wonder like what this team is going to look like. Do you foresee a rebuild? I personally, I think it'll be closer to a retooling than an actual rebuild for this team. You see his name?
That I was just gonna say a retooling.
Yeah, because
that's what I'm thinking.
The way that they structure their teams, the contracts, and also just the way that they make decisions, it feels like they're always thinking ahead. So I think they know this is the all-in year, but they also know they're set up not too badly for the very near future. So I think that's the good thing for this team.
Exactly. Excuse me. Exactly. They are set up very well. They know that I think they know their window is not wide open because they don't have a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen yet anyway. I mean, who knows? Brock could become that or Trey could become that. We don't know. We're hopeful one of them will at least become the next franchise quarterback. But yeah, their window isn't wide open, but their window isn't like it's just like this year and next year because they've still got a plethora of young players. I mean, you go up and down the roster, and not a lot of the players are over 30 years old. They've got more of the, under, I want to say, 25 and under is a good amount of players. I mean, you got Fonga, Lenore, you got Nick Bosa, who is 25, I believe. So they've got a lot of talent. So I believe they feel like they're good. I think they feel like this year is the year that they go all in and try to win the Super Bowl. But they're also looking to the future and saying, okay, we're good. We're good cap wise. We're good with the players we have signed. If Trent does retire, that will put a wrinkle in their whole, plan. But at the same time, they did opt into his 2024 to 2026 contract years.
Yeah, thought that was interesting.
Which tells me that Trent's going to be playing a little bit longer than people think.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was interesting, and I kind of got the same sense. So that's a good sign. Maybe they got, they spoke to him. They're like, hey, like, this is kind of the deal. We can continue to have you, and I don't know, maybe there's some mutual understanding there. So I think it's a good sign. And to your point about a lot of their players really young, I think also in looking ahead towards the future, that's why these draft picks, last year's draft, this year's draft, and even next year, going to be really important for this team, because that's going to be the foundation of the future for this team. So I think that's going to be really, really important. And it's good to know that despite only having, around 3 million, they're still going to be able to fit this draft class into that cap space. So I think it's looking positive. I feel much better after speaking with you today, because I thought the 49ers were going to have to make a lot more tougher decisions, honestly. And I think there's ways they can make it work, I think.
Yeah. There's ways they can make it work. And with the draft picks, you look at it, and they're one of the teams that know how to play the compensatory pick game so well. They got 7 this year, which only because you can only get a maximum of 4, but then they got the 3 threes because they're special. They're known as special compensatory picks for the diversity hiring. So you look at this year, next year, and then the year after that. You're looking at those drafts are going to be the foundation of what this team is really going to be going forward.
Right. Yep. So the 49ers outlook looking pretty good. Jason, thank you so much for joining me today. I mean, this was very insightful as always. You're just dropping like numbers that like off the top of your head, like these things. A lot of us have to look it up on these sites, and you just got them already in the back of your mind. So definitely appreciate your knowledge, and thank you for coming on today.
No, thank you so much, Steph, for having me on.
Yeah,
really
of course.
Mean it.
Anytime.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, anyone who's watching who has a podcast, get Jason on your pod, because he's so knowledgeable about this stuff. All you guys that tuned in, make sure that you guys like this video. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel if you are not yet. There will be more content like this to come. For now, have a good rest of your Thursday evening, people. Peace.